Nagaland Chief Minister Dr. Nipirio Pra State Budget 2026-27 laga general discussion khotom kure homoy fiscal discipline, infrastructure development or inclusive growth kan opor focus kuri gina kota kurishe. Riopa members kan ke khushi junaishe taikam pra bhal participation dina ahia nimide aro itu modat pra sorkari policies ba pra luigina jabule parbo koi gina kuishe.
Thank you, sir. I rise to give my concluding remarks on the general discussion on the budget presentation for the year 2026-27. I thank and acknowledge all the honorable members who have participated in the debate and given a very meaningful suggestions and includes namely Srimati Ekani Deghalu Jilse, Sri A. Pandong Jamir, and Dr. Kekelele Yume, Dr. Nisat Lobero, Sri Tongpang Ozukum, and Sri T.K. Sukalu, concluded by A. Atsumemo Kikon. Sir, I also appreciate all the honorable members who have patiently listened to the discussion, even though they have not participated in the interest of time. I take this opportunity to place on my record sincere appreciation to all the honorable members of this August House for their constructive participation, valuable suggestions and insightful deliberation on the budget. The depth of discussion reflects the collective commitment of this House towards the welfare and progress of our state. The observations, concern, and recommendation put forth by the honorable members have enriched the discourse and will guide the government in refining policies and strengthen implementation. I also extend my gratitude for the spirit of cooperation demonstrated during these proceedings. Such collective endeavor reinforces the strength of our democracy institution and ensures that governance remains responsive, inclusive, and accountable. So, if we have touched upon the budget referred by all the speakers, this time when we had gone to the budget session, the award of the 16th Finance Commission did not give any revenue gap grant, and therefore we rushed to Delhi when the announcement was made of the 16th Finance Commission, and me and my officers and some of my colleagues met the Honorable Finance Minister and also Union Home Minister Amit Shah ji. So I have some record, letter written to Finance Minister and a letter written to Union Home Minister on the 5th. And on the 4th February, we met the Union Finance Minister and we apprised all our problems and written our maximum requirement and minimum requirement. Otherwise, we will not be in a position to even pay salaries, pensions, and debt servicing, including the mandated commitments which we have to deal with. So those papers, after my speech, I'll be submitting to your office for record. On the 14th February also, I had written another letter to Finance Minister and then apprised of her about our precarious condition and informed that we will be going to the budget session on 2nd March. And before that, when she was traveling in Germany, I had a telephonic discussion with her, and she assured me. But since the Union Parliament is in recess, maybe the Union budget has not been passed, so they could not ascertain the amount. And we informed her that we will be going ahead with our minimum projected amount, that is 4,500 crores required for this current year, 2026-27. And after we pass this budget, I intend to send another letter of the money we had passed in this budget. For that commitment, we are praying for the release as grant, whatever is required. I hope with your commitment and the assurance, both by Finance Minister and also Union Home Minister, with my cabinet colleagues, I hope that, and I'm confident that we will receive. Speaker, sir, I may not be able to respond to each and every issue raised by the honorable members during the course of the debate, but I will try and address the concerns broadly. Honorable members, Srimati Dekani Tegalul Kemse has appreciated the women-centric initiatives that my budget has introduced, and the hope that the outcome budget will reflect the aspiration and objective of the gender-responsive budget, and also to ensure the funds are used judiciously for the purpose it was allocated. As I have mentioned in my budget speech, it is the collective responsibility of all stakeholders to ensure public rupee spending is accountable and achievable to the intended measurable outcome. Sir, the Honourable Member Sri Pangjong Jamir has raised two pertinent points in his speech. Firstly, the CM Sport Advancement Initiative, for which more disciplines are envisioned to be taken up in the near future, depending on the achievement of the athletes in the regional, zonal and national area. I have assured that more discipline will be decided after consultation, and it is taken, noted, and will continue to support our youth in the field of sports. Secondly, the need for upgradation of new administrative building in Duli. This is duly noted, and I may mention here that the state government has been upgrading administrative offices across the state, and the remaining infrastructure requiring upgradation has already been taken up with central government, as the state is currently not in a position to take up upgradation with all our own resources. This pertains to not only the administrative building in Tuli sub-division, but also of the other critical infrastructures like school, hospitals, government offices, quarters, can be dated back to our attainment of statehood and are now critically nearing its end of lifespan. About 56% of the government residential building and approximately 43% of the government non-residential buildings are age 30 and above, highlighting the indisputable need for regular renovation and repair for its upkeep. Honorable Member Dr. Ektelvele Yome and Sri Achumi Mokikon has also rightly pointed out the inception of our state in the result of a political agreement resulting from 16-point agreement. It was historic and acknowledged by the central government during the formation of our state that will be associated with long-term commitment of central fiscal support from the Consolidated Fund of India to address the state's unique ecosystem, developmental and geopolitical changes. Over 60 years later, the development promise of that covenant remains largely unfulfilled. However, the state has been marking its own calibrated fiscal consolidation efforts to improve our own resources, stabilize our commitments, expenditure, and contain fiscal deficit without compromising our development objectives. Sir, the Honorable Member Dr. Nismat Romero has raised the concern regarding National Highway 29, Package 2, Kohima-Jessami Road. Pertaining to the stretch between Kohima and Pachero, the project is being undertaken by NHIDCL and as per the periodic review of the state, NHIDCL has informed that the contract was terminated earlier due to non-performance of the contractor. Another contractor was appointed since January 2024, but progress continued to be slow. The NHIDCL had extended the contract period up to 31st December 2026. They have issued a notice to the contractor of their intention to terminate the contract for undue delay in progress as per contract agreement. Due to the continued monitoring by the state government and the physical progress now stand at 40.45% only, and the financial progress is 37.07%. The state government and the district administration has been extending all assistance and will continue to monitor the progress. Speaker, sir, the Honorable Members Sri Tombang Ulukum and Atumbe Bokikon has raised the concern regarding Trans-Nagaland Highway, Foothill Road. In this regard, the state government has spent an amount of this 245.50 crores from its resources till date, as mentioned by the honorable members also. However, this is a major project estimated to cost about 9,180 crores. So central government funding is required, and after thorough discussion, they have agreed. The Ministry of Road Transport and Highway will consider funding as a national highway if the state government can provide 30 meters right of way free of cost, and forest environment clearance. Forest clearance has been obtained, however 30 meters this NOC could not be obtained. We have obtained only for 12 meters. Therefore, there is difficulty for discussion. And Deputy Chief Minister, who is Minister in charge of highways, he has called for a meeting next week in this regard. I hope some positive development will come about. If our people wants to develop our roads, we have to make available, and since this is not a national highway declared, compensation formula is not there, only some damage control can be compensated. Honorable Member T.K. Sugalo has highlighted the issue of past history of appointment government servants without procedure and sanction posts. In this regard, the state government has implemented personal information management system popularly known as PIMS, in 2016, followed by the introduction of the e-pay bill system in June 2011. That has led to steady and consistent decrease in the number of government employees in the state. Between 2017-18 and 2024-25, the total number of government employees decreased from 1,11,805 to 1,03,793, reflecting an approximately 7% decline. This demonstrates the state commitment to reducing its committed expenditure on salaries and wages. And I commend the officers who are doing a commendable job in this. We are overemployed. We have the highest percentage of government employees as per population ratio. A few key administrative reforms contributing to this outcome are ban on work charge appointments effective from March 15, 2015, ban on contractual appointment effective from 6 June 2016, and streamlining of appointment in Group C in the state government with the constitution of the Nagaland Staff Selection Board in the year 2020, and conduct of examination by 8. Currently, PIMS does not register any irregular appointment cases. So on the concern raised by Sri T. Sekalu on the increasing instance of substance abuse in the state, it may be mentioned that all concerned agencies continue to take steps to sustain enforcement under the NDPS Act. A total of 157 cases were registered by the police for offences under NDPS Act in the year 2025, leading to the arrest of 260 persons, while enforcing is an obligation of the state. There are deeper psychological challenges that has to be addressed in our fight against substance abuse. Duly acknowledging and recognizing this concern, Nagaland Community Wellbeing Initiative is launched in this budget, provided psychological intervention to our youth and children facing such challenges. So in regards to Nagaland Liquor Total Prohibition Act 1989 was enacted in response to the strong societal demand, particularly from faith-based and community organizations, with the objective of promoting public health and social well-being. Over times, evolving ground realities have led to different perspectives. While sections of society continue to support the strengthening of existing prohibition framework, others raise concerns regarding enforcement challenges and the unintended growth of illicit activities, suggesting a calibrated review of the current regime. The government acknowledges those diverse viewpoints. It is also cognizant of the operational challenges faced by enforcement agencies and the need for strengthening institutional capacities. Public awareness, rehabilitation mechanism. In view of the above, the government is examining the matter in a balanced and consultative manner. Sir, regarding the exploration of oil and natural gas, you are aware that it has come to a stop by the state government in the year 1994 due to some contentious issues since then. The first issue of this was taken up when I became Chief Minister in 2003. I had mentioned earlier in this House also, my first meeting in the National Development Council, NDC, held in Srinagar in 2003. I attended and I raised this issue, and the Honorable Prime Minister, the then Prime Minister Vajpayee, he directed that Nagaland State, Petroleum Ministry and Home Ministry have a tripartite talk and find out a solution or a temporary solution to resolve this issue. And the outcome in the 5th February 2003, revision in rate of royalty on indigenous crude oils. So it has written like this: the government have also decided to allow a special grant at the rate of 2% over and above the applicable rate of royalty in respect of Nagaland State. This is in view of special provisions under Article 371A of the Constitution of India. So this paper I will give you. And so in this manner we have been pursuing. In 2010, the Nagaland Legislative Assembly, through a resolution as per the provision number 371A, passed a Nagaland Petroleum and Natural Gas Rules and Regulation 2012. Accordingly, expressing of interest was floated for participation and award pre-production and post-production licenses. Then this was awarded to Metropolitan Oil and Gas Private Limited in 2014. However, the Lotha filed PIL in Guwahati High Court Bench, Kohima in 2014, questioning the legality and constitutional validity of the rules and regulations. In 2021, the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas initiated discussion with the state for resumption of oil and natural gas activities in the Disturbed Area Belt area in Nagaland as an interim arrangement through MOU, routed according to suggested a tripartite and bipartite MOU. However, due to non-consensus on certain issues, the finalization is still pending. In 2025, the ministry had also constituted a high-level committee and a meeting was held with me at Kohima to consider an issue raised by me concerning state-specific policy which includes higher rates of royalty, carving out of the smaller block, setting up a refinery and other downstream business. On 10 February 2026, I met the Union Home Minister of Petroleum and Natural Gas again and impressed upon him the urgency to resolve the pending issues at the earliest. And they have decided to visit the state after a budget session. As declared in the budget speech, the government will establish a revenue and development fund mobilizations cell within Finance Department to identify innovative financing mechanism, strengthening resources mobilization and support development financing strategies. A committee on expenditure rationalization and revenue mobilization will be formed under my chairmanship, and the suggestion raised by the honorable members shall be further examined and evaluated through this committee. Sir, Honorable Member Sri Achumbe Mokikon has highlighted the need to improve performance of ULB. This is especially significant in light of precondition placed in the recommendation of Section Finance Commission for the availing the urban local bodies grant. The state government is continuously extending capacity building of ULBs with necessary budgetary allocation. And the state finance has also recommended for share in taxes amounting to rupees 15.83 crores and 9.16 crores as granny aid for urban local bodies with certain conditions. In regards to the enhancement of rupees 2 crores allocated to the development of the border areas, I would like to highlight that 15 crores was allocated last year in budget, especially for development of interstate border areas, and the rationale of this year's budget is to be allocated funds to all sectors to an equitable manners, and for which the amount of this year's budget has been as the figure mentioned above. However, there are needs and progress is good. The state government will look into it. And this year's budget is positioned as roadmap for development Nagaland at 2047, aligned with the vision of Viksit Bharat 2047. The budget is grounded in fiscal responsibilities and calibrated to the realities facing Nagaland in the context of constrained fiscal space, including the absence of revenue deficit grant support under the current Finance Commission cycle. We have exercised prudent prioritization to protect essential services while advancing growth and oriented investment. And I thank all the honorable members who had appreciated the Finance Minister for the prudent management in our fiscal management. Sir, our approach is clear: to strengthen human capital, expand livelihood opportunities, investment in critical infrastructure, and deepen financial inclusion. Special emphasis has been placed on youth skilling, women-led development, and community-driven institutions that have long been the strength of our state. The integration of SDG links and gender-responsive budgeting reflects our commitment to outcomes that are measurable, inclusive, and sustainable. So this budget marks a transition towards a more resilient fiscal framework where efficiency, transparency, and accountability guide every rupee spent. Through convergence across departments and a whole of government approach, we will ensure that implementation remains time-bound and impact-driven. Because, sir, above all, this budget reaffirms our commitment to balance and equitable development across all districts, leaving no one behind. With these words, I commend the budget 2026-27 to this August House for its consideration and passing. Thank you.